Yeah, it's a little late, but it's time for the Greg's Garage Pod with co-host Jason Pridmore. I'm Greg White. Hi, Jason. What's going on, dude?
What's up, G-Dub? How are you, buddy?
Pretty good. You know, had a very interesting weekend myself. What about you, man? How's the ankle? How's the pain levels? Those types of things?
It was a new low. A few days ago. So, the reason we're doing this a day late is I went and saw another specialist about my ankle. So I've really been doing my due diligence on this and getting about 4 to 5 opinions on what to do. And like 2 days ago, I literally couldn't walk. So it's time. It's time. Off season's going to be one where I'm going to get some stuff fixed and go into 2020, hopefully feeling much better than I did in 2019. And that's kind of what the deal is. Get this rod removed from the accident that I had in Australia, and then about a month later, I'll have the fusion done on my leg.
So safe to say you're not going back this year to Australia or 2020.
No, I decided pretty much a month or so ago that I wasn't going. But then yesterday was the final straw for me. I'm definitely not going to go to Australia this year, which is just a bummer. I really want to go. My heart wants to go and all that. But I mean, I realize my best racing days are behind me. My best golf days are probably behind me. I need to be able to be pain free. And I've gotten so used to living with pain for the last 10 years that it'll probably feel weird, but pretty much not going to have any pain in my ankle anymore after this, which will be nice. And I can get on with things. I'll still be able to ride. I'll still be able to do everything I want to do. In fact, I don't even know how much it's really going to impact me. It might not at all. But my goal would be to hopefully go back with Team USA in 2021 if everything goes well. I'll be able to go back to Australia with Josh and Larry Pegram and all the guys that are going this year. Michael Gilbert, I think, is going. I think Jordan Zoke's going. Taylor Knapp's going. It's a year I really wanted to go, but look, I got to get better.
I'm thinking about going to Australia for a World Archery tournament.
Yeah,
actually, in Sydney in January. But anyway, that's a side note. Couple things.
If it's not Phillip Island, it doesn't. If it's not Phillip Island, it doesn't interest me.
I know, right? So, it's a long flight, especially from the East Coast.
If you could go shoot your bow and then go get a couple days at Phillip Island, G-Dub, I don't know of a better trip.
Yeah, no kidding. That would be
the way to go, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be the week right after this Iowa Pro-Am. So it'd be like spend the weekend in Iowa, get on a plane in Iowa, and then fly to LA to Sydney. Kind of, I don't know. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's, we know I'm not dripping with money. Couple things though, Jay. Number one is I've been posting all of our past episodes on YouTube. So if you're listening to this podcast, personally, one of the things that people have been saying is that if they're at work and they want to listen, because we have the podcast as explicit, they can't, some workplaces like Yamaha or whatever block it. So now you'd be able to go and look at it on YouTube because we barely say any cuss words anyway. I just put it as explicit just in case we have Chad Reed on and he likes to drop, or a slip up, or we're actually normal human beings that are not on the air. The other thing is that I said last week that I was going to go to the hill climb, and I really tried to go to the hill climb race. It's about a straight shot. It's about an 8-hour ride because I wanted to ride my motorcycle. The weather last weekend was perfect. I went on the Rever app, which if anyone's ever using Rever, it's a fantastic app. And a friend of ours is part of that whole thing, Blake Connor. And anyway, so on the Rever app, you can say like, I want to map a route and I don't want to use highways, and you can drag stuff around on the desktop and then put it to your app. And I had this unbelievable like 11 and a half hour ride or 11-hour ride set. And so I take off from here Saturday, and the races I wanted to see up the hill were on Sunday, and I got press pass and everything else. And I got a couple hours down the road and I just couldn't do it, Jay. I couldn't do it, and I was like, man, I just haven't been riding enough. You just can't jump on a bike when you haven't been riding that much and just go for like 10 or 11 hours. So I was out in Western North Carolina in the mountains and ended up making some phone calls. And for those who saw, I ended up buying a brand new bow. So this Bowtech is a newer version of the bow that I shot and won those 3 national titles with this year. It's a longer bow. So, and they just came out on or they just announced it on the internet on Thursday, Jay. And so some shops were getting them, and I was like, well, let me go to this one shop. I called up, and this was like way out, and it was great, dude. This dude's like, hey, bud, what's going on? And mostly it's a hunting shop, right? So I'm like, hey, do you have the new Bowtech Reckoning 38? He's like, oh yeah, bud, we got that. Hey, it came in the box. I haven't even opened it yet. That's one of them Target bows, blah, blah, blah. So I went to the shop, and I was like, hey, can you set it up really quickly and let me throw a couple arrows through it? Jay, it's kind of like going to try a new driver. You get a couple swings at it and you go, okay.
Yeah.
So I threw some arrows through, into a target, and I was like, oh, this bow is so good. It feels so good. Like basically naked. I don't have all my equipment on it, my stabilizers and all stuff. And so I was like, oh, and dude's like, all right, bud, here's the price. And I was like, oh man, okay, fine. So I bought it. I went down to what's it called? Dollar General, got a couple tie straps and some duct tape. And
threw that baby on the back and went home, huh?
Yeah, a couple hour drive home and had it back, and everything made it safe and sound. But it was
good.
Crushed my gas mileage. But I'm bummed I didn't get to make the hill climb. I love hill climb, but maybe next year I'll look at the schedule and be able to get out to a hill climb race.
Yeah, that sounded like a big long turnaround for you. So
I did get on some twisties though, Jay, and it just
good.
Every time you get out on twisties, and I wasn't like hauling the mail, I was just enjoying myself, enjoying a 72, 73 degree day in the mountains. And I had that Triumph Street Triple with Dunlop Q3s on it. So, it handles great. I have a lot of confidence in the grip and all that stuff. And yeah, I got some twisties, so I was really happy. It's just
good.
Now I have a bow on the back, if you can imagine. And now I have the option of going like 2 hours and 15 minutes home straight on the freeway, and I'm like, okay, I'm good with that because I just wanted to get home, open up the bow, and start putting it together.
It's like Christmas. It's like Christmas.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's
Christmas.
great. Did you get to watch anything from Argentina?
I watched it all. Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yep. When I got home, I watched it on Sunday, and let's talk about World Superbike because it was absolutely riddled with controversy over the weekend. We'll go through some results real quick, Jay. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but. Let's. So obviously, World Superbike has three races. Race number one, which is a long format, was Alvaro Bautista. He looked fantastic on a very slippery track. We'll talk about that in a second. Johnny Ray in second. Top rack Razgatlioglu in third. Vandermark in fourth. Lowe's in fifth. Which that result right there, third, fourth, and fifth. Razgatlioglu, Vandermark, and Lowe's. They are locked in a battle for third in the championship. In the Super Pole race, the 10-lapper, it was Johnny Ray, 2.1 over Bautista, Razgatlioglu, Davis, Lowe's, Vandermark, Cortese. And in race number two, it ended up being Johnny Ray, 5 seconds over Chaz. Chaz Davis looked great. Razgatlioglu again with another podium. Vandermark, Bautista, and Lowe's. Now, when we look at this championship, Jay, you're looking at obviously Johnny Ray won. Bautista's in a second all by himself, but Alex Lowe's has 305 points to Vandermark's 304 to Razgatlioglu's 299. They are locked in a fierce battle for third place. So as I throw it over to you, Jason, there's two questions on the table. One, what did you think about the racing? Two, how important is it for these riders to lock up third in the championship? Really, does it matter?
Well, yeah. First off, the racing itself, I thought was the last race was particularly boring. The races were fun at the beginning, but it really, to me, showed some of the deficiencies of what some of the complaints were from the riders that we'll get into in a minute. The racing I thought was okay, but the track didn't really lend itself to I thought good racing. The battle for third is very important because the bonus checks and things like that. It's always nice to be invited to the party at the end of the year and go up there on stage in front of your peers. And each one of these guys has something different to fight for. When you look at somebody like Alex Lowe's right now, he got kind of hired by he got Yamaha, goes and hires Top Rack after the Suzuka 8 Hour, and basically Alex is left without a ride. So he would love to continue that feeling of being in the top three. I'm not going to say show up the manufacturer that got rid of him, but I think he wants to go into 2020 on a positive roll. So to finish third in the championship would be good for him. Top Rack, on the other hand, has been kind of fighting back all year to get back into that top three, and now he's well within striking distance. And Vandermark, He's with Yamaha another year coming up, so he wants to show them that, hey, I deserve this ride still. And he had a bit of bad luck. All three of those guys have. So finishing top 3 in the championship, Greg, I think is really important, and that's one of the reasons I think that things became fragmented. Over the riders all getting together, and I'll let you get into that a little bit and set the stage, because when last year, Greg, when they went to this track, I remember watching it on TV and being less than impressed with it. This year, when I looked at it and I watched the races, I thought to myself, this track looks great. And from all of what the riders say, the track is great. Like, they really like it. Bautista even said he likes it better than the Rio Hondo course, I think, is where they go in Argentina for MotoGP. I think it's what it's called, Greg.
Yeah.
But he said he liked that. He liked this World Superbike track in Argentina better than the MotoGP track. But last year, I remember they were having all kinds of problems there with the surface and coming apart and so on and so forth. And you would think that when you'd go back a second year that some of that stuff would get resolved. And it just didn't seem like it did. The riders were complaining about it on Friday, especially when there was a lot of heat in the track. And they kind of sounded like the riders all kind of came together.
Yeah, I mean, the report was that 14 of the 16 riders, or whatever, 14 of the 18, I can't remember now, got together and all decided that they were going to basically sit out race number 1 on Saturday, primarily because of the race surface. And you're right, Jason. Last year, the surface, it was a new track. The surface was actually coming up in chunks. So it was scheduled to either fix it, repave it. But word is they finished on Wednesday before the race. That's the word that I heard coming out of Argentina. They finished repaving Wednesday before the race. So that asphalt was brand new. It wasn't like MotoAmerica at Barber this year. Anyway, so you have the heat. So you have a brand new surface. It's eating up rear tires. It also, with the heat, is allowing the oils to come up from the asphalt, which is basically just an oiled track. So it was like it was a rain type of race. And some riders made the choice to sit out. And they kind of were going to sit out as a group, and then, of course, racing happened. So, either pressure from sponsors, or maybe riders felt like it wasn't that bad or whatever. So, obviously, the majority of them went racing, but how many sat out? 6, I believe, sat out?
Laverty, Melandri, Chianari, Cortese, Davis, and Camille all sat out the race. And we've been in this position ourselves before, Greg. A long time ago, there's places that come to mind for me. Chicago, when we went to go race, I believe it was in Joliet or...
No, it was Joliet, yeah.
It was Joliet, wasn't it? We were supposed to race there, and we all showed up, and it was as bad as you'd ever seen. There's been places like Loudon where riders have caught together. But the one that I remember the most was Pomona. We did a race in Pomona, probably even pre-Greg here.
That was pre-Greg,
where they ran it in a park. Yeah, it was pre-Greg, before you came into the series. They ran us in a parking lot in Pomona. And the thing I remember the most about that, I was young, obviously, and I kind of get hey, Jason, now all the riders are getting together and wanting to boycott the race type of thing. So I remember us all getting jammed into this tiny little mobile home unit. There was way too many people in this thing. And at the front, Fred Merkel, who had come back to our championship, he was up in the front and basically leading this kind of boycott / track is too unsafe, we shouldn't be racing here kind of revolt. And all the riders were, I think you got to remember, we had every class in this little tiny thing. There was guys even standing outside because they couldn't get in. But Fred Merkel was the guy leading the charge. And so we all kind of followed him behind and went, yeah, it is unsafe. We shouldn't be here, shouldn't be going out, shouldn't be blah, blah, blah. When it came time for first practice, everybody was standing around in their street clothes, and who was the first one going out?
Fred Merkel.
Yeah. Yeah. Fred Merkel. He's in his leathers. He's headed out, and we're literally parting the sea for him to go out. And we're looking at him like, is this even happening? But he was forced. He was forced to ride by Kawasaki, by Rob Muzzy. He was actually forced to ride.
Oh, gotcha.
So, end of that. It kind of sounded a little bit like that.
Well, you know what, Jay? I hate to jump in on you, but let me tell the story about Joliet really quick, because this makes now more sense to me after hearing what you said after all these years. So we go to Joliet, and yes, I am racing, but we know at the time I'm back of the pack road racer. But I was a regular on the series. So I remember us going to Joliet and showing up, and it was a drag strip with a long straightaway, right-hand corner. When you flick it back to the left, if you tuck the front, you would have slid right into a huge concrete circle that held up a pole.
Yeah.
You had a right-hander that we speculated would be first gear on a superbike that would lead you onto the front straightaway, but because it was a drag strip, you were going underneath the drag tower. So if you high-sided, you would have gone over, if you cleared it, you would have gone over a metal handrail and right through a glass window. Like it was dangerous.
And it was narrow. Do you remember how narrow that was?
Narrow, yes. Absolutely.
Like, I don't know if you could have fit 2 cars side by side through the opening that they wanted us to come through to get onto the front straightaway, which was the beginning of the drag strip, as you say.
Yep.
So
we all get together, right? We all get together, and pretty much, and everyone except for a couple of dirt trackers, the Boströms and Pegrams, say we don't want to race this, and they even came to me and said, "Hey, we don't want to race this deal." And I said, yeah, whatever. I don't really care. Whatever you guys want to do. And, that time I'm 100% privateer, Jay. I mean, I'm out. I can't change my flights. I'm there. I've already paid for my hotels. Like, I'm just out a couple grand. But I'm going okay. But here's the thing that's interesting and why what you said makes sense to me. So imagine it's now lunchtime. AMA has not pulled the plug. This is going to be on the race teams. So at the time, you have Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha. You have, the Muzzy team there. You have factory Ducati. Honda there. You have Ducati there. You have Yosh there. And I remember everybody had their transporters open with the canopies out with no bikes.
Yep.
And Don Sakakura is standing on holding one of the corner poles, and he's looking around, and it's a standoff, like a crazy standoff. Yep. Nobody's making a move. Because now that I get it, Jay, because they were waiting for that one person to go on the track. If one person had made the move to 100%. Go on the track, I think everybody would have ended up just saying. So everybody's standing there, and it was the most awkward thing, I would say, for probably over an hour as I'm sitting around watching all this. Don pulls one of the pins, if you've ever know those canopy, he pulls one of the pins on the pole he was standing on, and his team pulled pins, and within less than an hour, every truck was packed up and gone. I was shocked. And I was like,
well, and
the distrust, right?
I remember it.
Yeah.
Well, I remember it so well because at that point, I was getting to ride a Ducati Superbike. It would have been my second race after Brainerd. I was actually excited about riding and this and that. But I remember to exactly what you said. I remember all the factories just going, nope, and just like literally packing everything up, and trucks started rolling out. I think the thing that helped us there is the track wasn't even close to being completed yet. If you remember, they're still trying to figure out the chicane at turn 1, that they had cement barriers that they were building up.
Oh yeah,
a chicane, and I don't think anybody was hurting for that. Now, when you look at this situation, though, Greg, we're in 2019. This stuff shouldn't happen. As riders, there's a risk you take. And I read something really great, as I know you did too, on Bike Sport News. Jamie Whittam wrote a post about this whole thing. And pretty much when a rider who has ridden Isle of Man and some of the other places, Macau and things, I kind of dissolved them from being able to talk about rider safety. Now, the thing that Jamie brought up here for me, James Whittam brought up for me here that I really liked, was the fact that he's not talking about barriers being too close. He's not talking about that. He's talking about strictly a rider's surface, a surface on the track. And he said that had it been him back in the day, he probably would have rode because everybody else did. But you have to remember, the second that Top Rat grabs his helmet, automatically Vandermark and Lowe's have to go. They have to, because they got to protect themselves in the championship for third. So it's a chain of events that happens along the line. And it sounds like Johnny Ray's taken a little bit of a beating from this for some reason. Maybe something was said behind those doors that led everybody to believe that, well, Johnny Ray's kind of the guy. If he doesn't ride, none of us will. But the second somebody grabs their helmet, you have to go. Track surface this weekend looked abysmal to me. There were some photos that came out on Friday where the track looks like they're on the moon with a couple of lines of where riders have been going. The track looked completely dusty. The oil, the reason they were going to ride 2 races on Sunday, Greg, and not ride Saturday is because the temperatures were supposed to be significantly cooler on Sunday. And that's why they said, hey, we can ride when the track's cooler, but when it's hot, like you said, the oils come up. For a track to be in that state in 2019 at a world level specifically makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. And the riders shouldn't be in a position where they should have to come together and try to make a decision of if they think it's safe or not.
Right. The responsibility is on the FIM. It's on the FIM.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So, Jay, the question is, would this have happened because it's FIM, right? They're the governing body over, FIM North America is over MotoAmerica, FIM World is over MotoGP, World Superbike, and so on. If this was a MotoGP race, would this situation have happened?
Yeah, that's a hard one to say, isn't it? We just don't know because I think that the MotoGP guys get held at a different kind of regard than any Superbike riders. Too. And I think that, but the racing, let's just go to that. Was it interesting racing? It wasn't. It was garbage, I thought. And the second that you came offline, that you couldn't use the track. The track looks so incredibly wide, and it looks flowy, and it looks fun, and but it wasn't like there was a great deal of passing. It wasn't like guys could actually utilize the racetrack. If you had a guy similar to how Tony rides, Tony Elias, he couldn't just go straight to the apex because he would have had to run on the dirty part of the track or the part of the tracks that were slippery. They said that the last part of the track in the last sector where Loris Baz actually crashed twice in the same corner over the weekend, that section was the newest section. The oils were coming up worse there than anywhere. And it really just makes it to where the racing couldn't be close. If you watch the beginning of race 1, 5 of them are kind of up in the front, dicing it up a little bit. But it was like every chance that they took to get underneath somebody was a big chance. You could see in the riders' postures, at least I could, that it's almost like they were holding on and hoping that the front tire doesn't just, or the front end doesn't just go out from underneath them because it's almost like riding in the rain, and I saw some comments from people like, well, everyone's got to adapt to the conditions. That's not what you sign up for. When you sign up to ride and you race with an organization, especially at the world level, a track safety or grip levels and all that stuff should never come into question. Why do we not go to Mid-Ohio? We don't go to Mid-Ohio because the track conditions are horrendous. The track surface is horrendous. That's why we don't go. MotoAmerica is not going to book a track on the calendar where we know this going in. And I feel like with this thing here, had they sent somebody 3 months earlier, 4 months earlier, they might have been able to see some of the deficiencies that the track had and made some adjustments.
One of the things in racing that I thought was going on was the passes that were made were passes because the rider in front gave up the only line available on the track.
Yeah, you're right. 100%. Like they got on a little bit too deep and they were too scared to lean the bike in. And,
and then boom, they're vulnerable.
They kind of run a little bit wide.
Yeah, it wasn't like there was some really good, like I'm going to line this dude up. It was more like, oh shit, that dude's offline. Let me grab this line real quick. And then a pass was made. Yeah, that's not good racing.
And I don't like the fact that, that you have, look, I trust Chaz Davis and Camire and Laverty. And I mean, look, who am I to question their judgment? If they as riders feel like it isn't safe, then it probably isn't safe. And if other riders want to go out and ride because they can feel like, well, it wasn't that bad. I mean, the people that are going to suffer the most in a race like this are the ones that are battling from 5th to say 12th because you have to pass. Somebody like Johnny Ray, Batista, the Yamaha boys. I mean, look, they're kind of clearing off at the front, which is what we saw, isn't it, Greg? I mean, we saw in each race, it wasn't like 5 bikes were coming across the line together. It wasn't like the racing that we had in France where everybody's close and battling. Man, you're right, Greg. There was a lot of passes made based off of somebody getting into a corner and going, oh, I don't know if I can tip it in, and then passing, right?
Yep.
So it just made it very it was a shame to see. I've read all sides. I've seen what people have said. But if World Superbike or Dorna thinks that hey, there was literally nothing wrong with the weekend, we were perfect. Man,
I'd be shocked.
That would bum me out a little bit. Yeah. Did you watch World Supersport?
Yeah, I did watch World Supersport.
So in World Supersport, it was a little bit of the same type of racing, but let's go through some results. We got Clazel winning and checking out, which is just a mystery to me because I really rate Jules Clazel, and it goes back to even in France when he had some big opportunities to close in on the points and ends up finishing 5th or whatever at his home race. But Mahias ends up second. Vinales, good third for him. Pirolari, who ended up putting it on pole for the GMT 94 Yamaha team, he ends up fourth with Carrick Casulo, DeRosa, Krummenacher, Gradinger, Kyle Smith, Ayrton Badavini, Sebastian in 11th, on back to Akubo and Stange. Crescent and Sumer were last points. You know, Greg, this was another race where Cluzel gets out front, splits, and we had a big group of guys kind of battling for that second spot. And there are big championship ramifications in this between Caricasulo and Krummenacher. Those guys end up 5th and 7th. I don't know. I'm going to put you on the spot, but I don't know if I've seen Caricasulo and Krummenacher, at least not one of them being on the podium all year long.
I think maybe one race when they both crashed out or whatever. Remember, like just a couple races ago. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like the Bardal Evans brothers, Yamahas have been dominating the entire season. At least that's what it feels like. I mean, there's always that yellow and blue up in the mix somewhere. And this one, it was a total seesaw, wasn't it though, Jay? Because Krummenacher really was up into second place at one time. Caricasulo was up there, and they just kept shuffling around. And I think the track conditions definitely played a part, both from the slipperiness of the surface, but also from tire wear. But so good for Cluzel. Cluzel seems to be on a tear at the moment. Mahias, I think it was a good result. Good race. Vinales is his third podium in 4 races or something, and he's.
Yeah, the Cowies come together, and I just saw where they signed Oidel for next year. And
they did, yeah.
The Pacetti team. But, you got Krummenacher at 202, Caricasulo at 94. Really, these two guys are limping their way to this championship, whoever wins it. Both of them crash out in France. Krummenacher crashed first that day. Federico Caricasulo leads that race and crashes out with like a 4-second lead, and then does the business again, crashing 5 laps later. That was at Magny-Cours a few weeks ago. Now both of them are off the podium here, but I think the thing that I look at, Cluzel, it brings him back into the championship, although, Greg, he's 22 points back, so I don't know how much he's really in it, but with the way those two guys are at the front, anything can happen, I think, at Doha. I think that the craziest thing that I have seen out of this championship this year is that Randy Krummenacher has come out and basically said that his team, the Bardal Racing Evans brothers team...
Hold on. Not basically.
Yeah.
Not basically.
Well, he's come out and said... Yep, he's come out and said that they'd rather have Caricasulo win the championship than him, and that his bike was slow, and that his bike was not up to the performance of his teammate. Now, Greg, if you watch that race, you said it just now, at one point he was in second spot. He was actually second. And it was one of those passes that you've also mentioned today where he got into the tight left-hander before the back straightaway there at Argentina, probably like turn 6 or 7. He gets in there a little bit deep and can't stay on that preferred place on the racetrack and gets out into the dirty, and Caricasulo stuffs it up underneath him. And at that point, Krummenacher just went straight backwards. I mean, everybody started to go by him, and Mahias had kind of checked out in second, but Vinales, Pirolari, Caricasulo, DeRosa, they all end up going past Krummenacher. But Greg, my question to you is this. You got an 8-point lead going to the final round. Why would you come out?
I know what you're going to say.
And rip on your team with one race to go, leading the championship. I do it after the season. Like, what are you thinking?
So a couple things. Number one, Krummenacher kind of qualified what he was saying at the beginning of his statement by saying, I'm an honest guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm paraphrasing, but basically, like, I always come at this honestly, and this is the way I feel. Okay, great. Well, you can be an honest person, but that doesn't mean you have to say what you said. Number one, because of the situation you're in. I understand that Caricasulo has been with the team for quite a while. He's like their golden child, from when Caricasulo won his, I can't remember what it was, 600 European, whatever it is. Okay, I know that Caricasulo is their guy, according to Krummenacher. I can tell you what's just so interesting to me, Jason, is that the team, I don't know if you saw the statement the team put out the next day, but the team put out a statement basically outlining a bunch of statistics saying, look, yes, Krummenacher was, 2K down average on Caricasulo. He was able to do this live. Like, they're in a defensive mode right now. Is the Bardal Evans brothers team. They're the ones saying, like, hey, by the way, our rider is wrong, and here's our proof to show you that we're not messing with, his championship. So I just can't even imagine going to work on the last weekend, and having to face your team like, hey, what's going on, guys? And everybody's just
So crazy.
You know what I mean? So
I agree with you. It's just so weird. And
it'd be one thing,
honest,
Jay, if he lost the lead in the championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I actually hadn't looked at the championship points.
Yep.
And I saw all this ruckus going on, and the first thing that came to my head was, "Oh man, Krummenacher must have lost the lead in the championship. He must be down a couple points." And then I saw the results, and I was like, "Wait a second, 5th to 7th is it what?" And I went and looked at the championship, and I'm like, "This dude is up in arms, and he still has the lead." Like,
got an 8-point lead. First thing I did is I went and looked at the lap charts, mile an hour to mile an hour, and it was like 3 mile an hour difference between him on his best.
Not even mile an hour, Jay, kilometers per hour.
Yeah, well, on the one I looked at was mile an hour. And,
really?
And
okay.
So, yeah, and which was fine. The thing was that cracks me up is that best to best, and we don't know where the gun is, but it's usually at the end of the front straightaway. That could be draft induced. It could be a number of things. But the guy had second on his own. Like he was, he was there. He had it to where, he made a mistake. He said he rode faultless. He said, "I never made a mistake in the race." And I'm like, I ran the race and I watched it back, and I can't remember who was in my house, and I was watching it with him, and I'm like, I was Corey. I had Corey Alexander here. And I said, "Does that look like a mistake to you?" And Corey's like, "Yes, it's 100% a mistake." I'm like, well, then what's he on about? And if you're going to be an honest guy, if you're going to be honest and say, "Hey, I'm an honest guy," yeah, you made a mistake. You can't go in saying that you didn't make any mistakes and your bike was slow and yada, yada. That just, it blows me away. But to do it with one race to go. And do we know, does Randy Krummenacher have a ride next year? Is he with this team again? Is it like, I have not read anything.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But if he doesn't have a ride, oh boy, who is going to be looking at it? Even if Krummenacher grabs that number 1 plate, who in their right mind is going to go, "Oh yeah, this is the guy
you
we
think
want."
This team wants him back? Like, you just shed a light on the team. The team's got, from a PR perspective, the team's got first and second in the championship. They've probably got it all going for them. Here's our team. We're winning the championship, blah, 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 blah. And then your rider comes out and just kind of throws you under the truck. It's just, and whether it's true or not, the honesty I appreciate, but you got an 8-point lead. Go settle your business. If you win the championship at Doha, you can say how you felt still. If you don't win the championship at Doha, again, you can say what you felt. To put your team on blast like that before the last round just didn't seem like the smartest thing in the world to do.
I can't wait to see the fireworks. And the thing about World Supersport is it's just one race. You know what I mean? Like it's all or nothing at this point. And if those two come together, and it's pretty well documented that Caricasulo and Krummenacher are not BFFs off the racetrack anyway. So, and hey, people have won championships like that, being in a garage and not being friendly with people. And I think there's a perception out there from race fans that, everybody either gets along in the paddock or it's like a big deal when they don't get along. And it's like, hey, man, look, these are racers. These are people that the only reason they're in the position they're in is because the level of competition they live in every single day, from the Valentino Rossi's of the world and the head games he used to play and putting up a wall, when he was teammates with Lorenzo, to the Marc Marquez's of the world who puts on a really good smile. But we know that when the garage goes down, he's an absolute beast. It's like, man, these are people that grew up being competitive, and it's a reason why they push themselves so hard off the racetrack to stay fit and to be better riders and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think just because Caricasulo and Krummenacher are racing in World Supersport that's any different. It's not. So yeah, good for Randy. He's flying the Swedish flag, and I mean, I just can't wait to see World Supersport last race. If you have it, you got to tune in because it's going to be good. I mean, I had that feeling, Jay, that this championship is going to end up like the person who loses it is going to be in the gravel trap.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
I just think that there will be a mistake made, but and unfortunately, Clazel's so far back now. He's 22 points, so it's really going to take those two guys to do something silly to each other, and he's going to have to win. So, it's just there'll be some things to fight for. It'll be interesting to see how that weekend gets going, and at a great track too. Man, I love Doha. Doha's so great.
It is. All right, so that's World Superbike for now, Jason. We have MotoGP Japan coming up here in a moment, but let's go ahead and talk about some news because there's a lot of different news items going on. A couple things coming across the ticker tape. Zarco is filling in for Takaaki Nakagami after this next round coming up because Nakagami is going to opt for surgery after Japan. Let's talk about that a little bit. Plus, Jonas Folger re-signs with Yamaha as a test rider, which all reports are that leaves Zarco out of the Yamaha fold. We know that, there's some other things that could happen. I mean, Lorenzo could leave and head to Ducati, like whatever. So let's talk about this whole situation now with Johan Zarco. Number one, Jason, I think the question I have for you about these news items that are coming out about Zarco is Zarco really good enough to warrant all this press? Like, is it me, or do I just think Zarco is a very good talent? I mean, I know what he did last year for sure, but I mean, is the fate of Johan Zarco going to be the guy who challenges Marc Marquez at the front?
Well,
or is this just a series now that just is trying to make news for second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth?
I think you're more on point there. There's nobody that can run with Marc Marquez and we have this discussion all the time. He doesn't have an equal, first or second in every race other than the one he crashed out in Austin. That's domination. There's not really anybody that can run with him. I think that when you are looking at a Zarco, a lot of team managers are, once you're kind of in that little circle, you're in the circle. So you're going to get shuffled. You're going to get put other places. You're going to get to go chance to go ride at 2 or 3 different places before you get shuffled out. And I think with Zarco, what this really tells me, because all signs pointed to him being the Yamaha test rider next year. When I saw that he did this thing for Honda, in my own little corrupted mind, I'm thinking, well, he probably still wants to race. This is an opportunity that has probably been afforded to him. Not sure what the carrot is dangling out in front of him. But if I'm Yamaha, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, let him go ride the Honda so he can tell us some things about it maybe.
That's what I was thinking.
This is my thinking. I was like, so we're on the same page of we don't care if he goes and does 3 races. We're going to make sure he gets through them healthy, and then we'll be there with a checkbook to hire him as the test rider, with possibly some wild cards, maybe like we've seen some of these other guys kind of get mixed into. So I was thinking to myself, that would be maybe an ideal situation. He gets to go out and ride a different motorcycle to see how different it is from the KTM that he rode. He's already ridden on the Yamaha. So, I mean, I thought that this would be a great deal. It wasn't until this morning where you told me that Folger had re-signed with Yamaha, and I read about it. Now it appears that Zarco is gone. So there's 2 things that come to my mind with this. Do I think he's good enough? I do think he's great. I think he's a good rider. I think it was very hard for a guy to walk away from a situation that he did, but he was unhappy. So it goes to show that his psyche is in the right spot. He feels like he can do way better than he's doing, and he just didn't feel like he could do it on the KTM. I don't know how much easier it will be for him to do that on the Honda, though, Greg. I mean, we've seen him on the Yamaha do really well. And he was kind of the guy that everybody wanted going into 2019, and KTM scooped him up. Wasn't it true that he was rumored to turn down Honda, and then he was rumored to turn down Suzuki, and he ends up going to KTM?
No. The rumor is that his manager, who he ended up firing,
right,
was working both sides, was
correct,
working the KTM, and Zarco had no idea Honda was interested.
But essentially, that's what I'm saying is essentially it looked like he had turned down other offers to go to KTM, and that's where he ends up. Whether it was him or his manager, So now what is the carrot dangling in front of him? Is it a chance now where they may get rid of Bradl once they see how Zarco does on the Honda? Do they get rid of Stefan Bradl, who's been their test rider, and Zarco takes over that role? Is this a deal where Lorenzo's out the door? Is this a deal where Crutchlow, he's had a big leg injury this year, kind of has hinted that, he doesn't know how much longer he's going to go. I mean, there's a lot of things now and a lot of questions. So when he lines up on that bike, I believe first race for him will be Phillip Island on the Honda. It'll be interesting to see, kind of how he gets on with it and what shuffling there could possibly be there.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, if this was a championship battle, I think coming down to it, and it was Marquez and I don't know, pick a guy, Quartararo or Dovizioso, whoever, fantasy land of racing with that guy. But I think that this is more of a back burner news item. I think it's at the forefront now because there's not a whole lot to talk about. I think people are just sitting back waiting for Quartararo to get his first race win. He deserves it, that type of thing. But Jay, let me ask you this question. Okay, if a Repsol seat becomes available inside the MotoGP paddock, not on the Moto2 side or anything else, but inside the MotoGP paddock, if you could pick anyone, and I want you to really think about this for a second because I have a rider in mind, knowing how difficult it is to ride that bike, the Honda, who would you put on that motorcycle if you had your pick of anyone that's in the paddock?
It's an easy one for me, and I'd probably put Paul Espargaro on it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Pol Espargaro, 100%.
yeah. I think that he has shown how good he really is. There's only been one guy that's really got any results on that KTM, isn't it? So,
yeah,
I think that the KTM is not an easy bike to ride. And I think that that's what has been said about the Honda, that it isn't an easy bike to ride either. So if I had to choose, anybody, I think that what he has done this year has been pretty incredible. He's really put that bike up front in some races that I don't think otherwise that he probably thought he would be. So, yeah, I think there'll be some interesting stories coming out of this next race, and it'll be fun. I read where Marquez has basically come out and said, the bike's hard to ride, but it's fast. And I think every rider, that's where it starts, isn't it? It's you have to have a fast motor, and then you kind of hope that you can build a bike around that and make it better. And he basically just says, the bike is hard to ride. But it's very fast, might be hard to ride, but we don't want to change the characteristics of it too much, because that's what he's been able to do to make the bike work. But I think Paul Espargaro would be able to get on that thing and do the same thing.
Yeah, but that's what Marquez wants. The question becomes for Honda, and this is all manufacturers. Yeah, Marquez can win on it, but let's just say something happens to Mark. I mean, he's got incredible luck. He's got low side crashes. He doesn't high side very often. He has, but he doesn't do it very often.
Mm-hmm.
So if Marquez gets hurt, there's no one else who can ride that bike. So at some point, Honda's going to have to change that bike to make it an easier bike to ride. Also on the news, though, news item, Jay, I just want to say that there was a press release that came out a couple days ago about Arenacross, which is now an official AMA sanctioned class, which is which is very, I think people are like, yeah, but so what? But the thing is that when you're an official AMA sanctioned series, they're the ones who handle the rule book. They're the ones that are going to handle protests and things like that. And they're the ones who get all the history and keep track of it and things like that. Later on this podcast, not today, but sometime down the future, I'm going to have a sit-down interview with the guy who runs all of AMA Pro Racing, and we're going to talk about Supercross and MotoAmerica and all kinds of stuff that relates to AMA. He told me, though, in talking with him, Kevin Crowther's his name, and Kevin and I were talking that I don't think it's well publicized, but AMA and Feld have done an extensive contract to renew Supercross. So it was up in 2019. So Feld continues to be the promoter of Supercross for the foreseeable future, which I think is great, because Feld has done a great job, in my opinion, with Supercross, Jason, as we are, so close to the start of that season, January 7th, I believe. And we're going to, I would imagine we're going to play Fantasy Supercross again. Aren't you?
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you because, I think I need we got time redemption.
To build. Yeah,
How'd you do last year in that, Greg? How'd you do?
P last, I think. P 57th, or I don't know.
It was pretty bad.
It was pretty sad. Yeah. I'm going to really do my homework this year. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to give it 110%. My team's behind me. I'm going to get a good electronics guy. Whatever.
I got hosed in the last couple of races. That's what I'm going by. I remember. But no, we'll do that again. I think a lot of people enjoyed doing that with us last year, so I bet our group will get even bigger again. But I think it's cool. Yeah, Arenacross, I was bummed because it wasn't around this last year. So yeah, it's good to see that it'll be coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm excited.
I'm happy about that. But
we'll follow that too.
So MotoGP, going back to that we're in Japan this weekend in Motegi. I saw where Dovi is saying that, it should be a good track for the Ducati. So let's hope that we have a good race. I mean, I think there's just a lot of things going in the MotoGP circle right now. And the kid Marquez is just riding now. He's just riding for fun. I mean, these are like fun weekends. There's really not a lot of pressure. The kid is single-handedly almost taken Honda to the Manufacturers Championship as well. Like, how do you think the manufacturers look at that when you think about, Marquez has single-handedly made it to where Honda can win the Manufacturers Championship, hardly with any help from Nakagami, obviously none from Lorenzo, and Quartararo put some races in there at the beginning of the year that were pretty solid, but it's pretty funny, isn't it? Like, not only has he won the Riders Championship, but now, he's almost won the Manufacturers Championship.
Yeah, single-handedly. I mean, that's back to the point I was talking about. If you're Honda, you can't just can't put all your eggs in one basket. Just relying on him. And he rides at such a level and takes so many risks. And he says he doesn't, but he does. That it's just, I just hope Marc stays healthy. I mean, how many riders have we seen just end their career with an injury? And it's.
Yeah, but look, at this point, like, we never would want to see that, but he's got 8 championships in the bank. It's not like he's one of those poor guys that's finished second and third and has not really got to taste the championship trophy champagne and then gets hurt and doesn't have anything to kind of show for it. He's got plenty to show for. We don't want to see him get hurt, obviously. I'm going, you're going to love me for this. I'm going off topic because I got something I want to, and we're going to talk about this more. And it would be even interesting to get some viewer feedback on it. But have you seen this thing where they're talking about possibly, they're going to go to 22 races and then discard like a couple of your bad races?
What's wrong with you? Yeah, it's in Quickshift. I put that in the Quickshift segment, you jackass. But yeah, I've seen it.
Okay, hold on. Did you really?
Yeah. See?
Did you?
Yes. Yeah, it's in Quickshift.
I haven't got that far.
Exactly. Well, we'll talk.
All right. Go. Okay.
Why don't we talk? I tell you what. Why don't we just talk about it now? We'll talk about it now, you dope, and then we'll talk about it.
No. Sorry. Let's.
Hey, by the way, all this is making it in a podcast. I'm not editing any of this out. It's all making it. You're not
editing any of this. No, you got to edit this shit.
No,
you got to edit it.
No way.
Come on, man.
Oh, no chance. No chance.
I was just thinking about this thing. Look, my mind goes sometimes when we're doing our podcast, and I was thinking to myself, I know I read it somewhere, and I couldn't remember, but I was going to ask you, but it's in our quick shift. So for those of you, if he hasn't edited it, you got to edit this.
If he doesn't, I'm not. I'm telling you, I'm leaving it in. Go ahead.
All right. Well, no, I think it's crap. I hate it. I don't like the fact people talk about the showdown at BSB. I hate it. Yeah. I think it stinks. Yeah. Because you could be racing all year long and okay, they're trying to keep the championship open for the end of the year. I think it's crap.
All right, hold on. Before you get let me give people some background, okay?
Yeah.
Because I had this whole thing written. So the question
Sorry to ruin our podcast.
No, you're fine. You're not. With the thing is, with Marquez wrapping up the championship so incredibly early and MotoGP having such a good, last couple of years and has gained viewership and all that kind of stuff. And in a world that doesn't see many people going out to events, maybe it's just the US.
Yep.
By adding those 2 races in 2020, that question is looming, Jason. Will people sit around and still watch if Marquez continues to dominate? So back in 1951, so GP started in 49. So back between 1951 and 1976, you could throw out some races. It was outlined in an article in gp1.com is where I'm getting this information. So for example, Jason, back in 1976, out of 9 Grand Prix races, you could basically throw 3 of them out. Now, the reason for that, but the reason for that, okay, is because think about back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, mechanical failures played a big role in it. So you had riders that were clear and away the fastest riders, but they couldn't keep their bike together. So the series felt at the time they didn't want to be penalized for mechanical failures. So you could get rid of maybe 1 to 3. I think there was one like in 1974 where you could get rid of like 4 races in 1 year or something. Yeah. So that question has come back now, the conversation about should we go back? For instance, Dovizioso had a couple of, I think the difference is now you don't really see mechanical failures. You just see dumb moves by riders. The mechanicals are rare in MotoGP. And if you think about all the crap that's on those motorcycles, all the electronics and, with the fact that you only have 5 engines and you know what I mean? Like the whole thing, mechanical failures are very, very rare.
Yeah.
So that's part of the conversation now. It's come back in. Like, should we allow riders to drop bad races to keep this championship close? My opinion is that is wrestling. It's a pre-manufactured kind of a thing. And it's like, we listen, we do this in archery in a series that I do called ASA and I which is 3D archery. You get to drop like 1 or 2, depending on how many they have, you're bad. And then they call it a pro series. And I don't think there's any professional series. I mean, Jay, can you imagine if your garbage Eagles got to throw out 1 bad? game.
Now we're getting personal. I don't appreciate that.
I'm sorry.
Greg,
but you know what I'm saying? Like
we need to throw out more than one game, Greg. We need to throw out more than one. But the thing is, right, is what's, I mean, I don't know how funny it is. I don't know what the points would be, but Marquez has had a crash and nothing but first and seconds. Am I right on that?
You're right.
So he would throw a crash away and a second, but which I think is funny. It would be interesting to see what the points would be, but I just don't like it. When you are there from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, okay, and I hate even bringing this series up, but NASCAR, I lost all interest in NASCAR when it went to this little showdown thing because it got too confusing to figure out who's in, who's out. Now it's gotten even more confusing, it seems. I talked to Roger a little bit. Roger Hayden, he's in this NASCAR pool, and if I was a gambler, which I'm not, but if I was, if I like to wager every now and then,
liar.
Yeah, but he's in this pool, and we're talking about. So I watched a race the other day, and I was confused because all the drivers had different colors next to their names of who's in, who's out, who could be. Oh man, it just wore me out. But the thing I don't get is if you're there from the beginning of the series to the end of the series, I wonder how many championships Shaky Byrne would have won had they not done the reshuffle for the BSB thing. And I get what they're trying to do, but it's always going to be the top 2 or 3 guys, and I'd have to look into it closer. But whoever's usually leading, it's not like somebody's ended up just squeaking into the showdown in 6th and then gone on and won the championship. But it's usually between the two or 3 guys at the front that are going to win the championship. I just think that you got to let it play out the way it is. If they want to keep adding races and make it to where somebody like Marquez is going to win championships by more, I mean, would you rather add races or do you want a close championship? Like, I think you got to pick which one you want.
I hope I get this out of my brain and through my mouth correctly, but no matter what your championship looks like, and Jason, you and I have been around long enough where we've seen points change a lot, of series messing around with different points, how they score, point for most lap led, point for pole position, all those crazy things, right?
Yeah.
Paying back to 30th spot, all that stuff. So the thing is that you can look at the data now and you can say, well, if we changed it and we dropped races, this is the way it would look. Okay. And you go, oh, okay, the championship would be closer. But the reality is that when you're in a championship, no matter what the structure is, racers and teams are going to race to the point structure.
Yep.
So you can't say this is the way it was. So if we just change the model, this is the way it's going to be, because they're going to figure it out. And if you have a couple races that you could drop, they're going to figure out how to maximize that. And on the days when, either someone break, like it's just, it to me, it makes no sense. Just hold firm.
Wouldn't it be more embarrassing? Wouldn't it have been more embarrassing? Like, let's say that we had adopted that this year. Like we had adopted that thing this year in MotoGP. And let's just say that Marquez finishes in Austin. How embarrassing would it be that he had to drop 2 second places?
Dovizioso has to drop 2 0-point finishes. What difference would that have made in the championship?
It doesn't. He would have already won it probably anyways. So, yeah, crazy. Sorry. Yeah. Anyways, it was a rant. It was a rant. I was thinking about it while we were talking, and
Well,
so there you go.
We'll just skip over that topic when we get to Quickshift, which is coming up here, Jay. Because we're going to get off Japan. Japan's looking good. We do have a real close one in Moto 2. Moto 2.
Moto 2 and Moto 3 are about the same. So they're both going to be good, though.
Yeah, Moto 3 is going to be great. So check that out. Also this weekend coming up is the one-off winner. If you win all 3 races, you win $1 million Monster Energy Cup in LA in Vegas, sorry. Last year, Eli Tomac did it with some help from his then teammate, Joey Savacci. If you remember, JP, Eli's going to try to do it again. There's going to be some changes in the field that are very exciting. It'll be the first time we see your boy Adam Cianciarillo on his 450. Aaron Plessinger, is back. He won the Amateur All-Star back in 2014. Chad Reed is on a self-funded Honda. I don't know if you saw all that stuff.
I saw it. Yeah. Have you talked to him at all?
I haven't had a chance to talk to him. We just kind of traded some comments back and forth, but nothing really big. I know that JGR, the team, why he lives in Charlotte and everything else, they're still waiting on what their 2020 plans are. So I saw that his mechanic, who is from JGR, working on a Honda. So I thought, That's pretty interesting. Malcolm Stewart's going to be in the race. Justin Barcia is going to be there. Unfortunately, no defending Supercross champ Cooper Webb. He's coming off of an injury, has only been on a bike for like a week or something like that. He bowed out a couple days ago. No Jason Anderson, no Zach Osborne. It'll be on NBCSN at 10 p.m. East on Saturday night. Are you going to have a chance to watch Monster Energy Cup, JP?
I am. I'm going to watch it. I think, I always get a little keyed up for it. I get worried when I see guys that aren't riding. I think Cooper's probably still coming back from that injury, right?
So, yeah. From the knee injury Yep.
Mm-hmm. So his knee injury. But like Jason Anderson backed out, Zach Osborne backed out. I think that.
Jason Anderson was in Europe for a month. Like, I understand why Jason.
I get it. No. I get it. I totally. That was said in a way that, I get it. Those guys, man, all they do is ride. They just ride and ride and ride and ride and ride. But don't know about Dean Wilson and those guys also on that same kind of rock star team. It'll be interesting. I love watching it. I love watching Supercross. I don't know where the year's gone. It's gone by so quickly, and we're already here with it. So I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to go ride. I'm going to go ride Big Willow on Sunday.
Oh, are you really?
With a friend of mine. So I'll watch the race Saturday night, then rip out to Willow on Sunday morning and have a pedal around that place.
Haven't been around Willow in a long time. Always a big fan of 8 and 9, though. Some of my favorite corners of all time. Could take the wind and shove it up its ass, though. But other than that.
And that's why we have the explicit rating.
All right, Jay, now we're going to transition to this thing that we call Quickshift, presented by ARAI. Well, JP, did you know that avoiding impact energy intrusions by sliding or glancing off surfaces and obstacles is a key role in the helmet shell, requiring a strong, smooth shell? Now, for this purpose, ARAI handcrafts each shell to be as strong and light as possible with a high fiber-to-resin ratio of proprietary Superfiber NZ resin. However, the process leaves a rough surface, which requires many steps to prepare it for a beautiful, smooth finish without adding any excess weight. Even though invisible, these details are important in your protection. That's ARAI Obsession. ARAIAmericas.com. Pick what you like. Head down to your local dealer for fitment to grab a new lid. ARAIAmericas.com. All right, well, in this unedited podcast, let's go ahead and jump right into our quick shift segment where I'm going to go when it's time to stop yakking. First topic, Jason. Jorge Lorenzo, he said, quote, "Myself and my team have some ideas to try for the bike in Motegi, which will hopefully allow us to get back to where we need to be." Hot air or not? I mean, come on.
What is he supposed to say? You got to do a press release. You got to do something. You got to give your PR guy something to say going into the weekend. What is he going to say? He has to say something and put a spin on it. It's frustrating, I'm sure. I don't want to say it's hot air, but what are you going to try? You don't think that they've exhausted every possibility of things that they could try? He's just so far back. When you look at it, he's so far back. He's 2 seconds. He's second and a half, 1.1, whatever it is. He's 16th and 20th every weekend now.
Would you dust off an 18 frame and put him on the Nakagami's bike?
Why wouldn't you? Let him try something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have, and I've missed that point. But, I mean, that's kind of what I would do at this point, I think. Just give him something, especially because he keeps saying that he's going to stay for next year.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, crazy. Crazy. Fabio Quartararo was talking about Marc Marquez at the Twin Ring Motegi. Basically said that Marc is strong and he will focus on the Rookie of the Year title. What do you think about that?
Come on, man. I mean, yeah, okay. You brush it over, but now Quartararo's kind of backed out of it. And today in the press conference, he said, it's a favorite circuit of his. He's good. I don't know if he's trying to slow play Marquez because nothing's going to work on Marc Marquez. You can't get into that dude's head. Rossi tried. He's as strong as an ox in terms of, what's between the ears. So, I don't know. You tell me about Rookie of the Year. I don't know if there's a bonus associated with it, what the big deal is.
Don't you think at this point, Rookie of the Year for Quartararo is in his back window?
That's what I'm saying. Like, the guy's...
Right, I agree with you 100%. I just think it's, again, he's thinking of something to say. I mean, these guys, you got to remember, everybody's always talking to them. Everybody's always bringing stuff up to them and blah, blah,
19 weekends of sound bites too, right? Like press releases and stuff before and after and during. Yeah, they got to have something to talk about.
Yeah, you just always got to do it.
All right.
I'm going to do the last one only because I screwed you out of the next one.
Fine,
so
go ahead.
Go
ahead.
because we just talked about Willow Springs. So,
Yeah.
This last week, I think it was yesterday, there was everybody from Alpine Stars. They had a great track day out at Willow Springs. I would love to know what Casey Stoner thought about Willow Springs.
Yeah, no
Casey
kidding.
Stoner, Ben Spies was out there. I think Zemke was out there.
Yeah.
Did you see the picture that Zemke posted yesterday?
Which one? I saw one of them where
it was it was in his story. It was a 30-year-old photo of him. Like, this is where it all started, and it started for him at Willow. And it looks like he's on some 2-stroke, and it's like, it was a really good photo. But anyways, all of Alpine Star had like a day out there at Willow Springs. I saw Stoner on a Yamaha, and Greg, this is how rumors start, isn't it? I mean, could he possibly be on a Yamaha at Suzuka or something like that? You just never know.
So what you thinking? I saw a photo of him and Ben Spies on the bikes rolling out to the track, and Stoner posted, like, thanks to Yamaha for the bikes and all that kind of stuff. So what? Are we fueling the fire now? What do you think? Spies comes back.
Fueling nothing.
Stoner comes back.
They had a bunch of different bikes.
Suzuka 8-hour. No, let's start that rumor. I think it's pretty cool, man.
I can tell you right now, Spies has no interest in the Suzuka 8-hour. Being on a bike for 4 hours in a race, I don't think with his shoulders and stuff would do him well. I get this call yesterday because Michael Gilbert was out there. Corey Alexander went out there. I mean, Aaron Colton was out there. It sounded like they had a fun day.
I didn't get my
Michael
invitation.
Calls me and
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well. Well, there's a size thing that we could talk about with leathers, but we won't do that.
Hey now.
But Michael calls me and he says, Jason. I said, what's up, Michael? He's like, I just followed Stoner. I said, did you? How was it? He goes, he does some interesting things on a bike. I said, well, he's Casey Stoner. Like that. I mean, he is Casey Stoner. Like, he's going to probably do some interesting things on a bike because he's world champion twice over and was probably one of the best that ever swung a leg over.
Yeah.
But that's what these guys do. When you are who you are, like as a Casey Stoner or a Wayne Rainey, you do things a little different than everybody. That's what separates you. That's what makes you better. And but yeah, and Corey was the same. Corey said he got to ride around with those guys, and Justin Barsha was there. So
yeah,
that was another little thing that when I saw you talking about him and the Supercross for this weekend, Justin Barsha was out there, loved it. Says he wants to do some more riding. So it sounded like those guys had a good day. But Willow Springs is definitely a special place. I guess Stoner said, if they had it if it was a little bit more repaved and that kind of thing, it would be something that that would be better. But yeah, I
mean, it's not Willow's fun. It's fast for a bigger dude like me. I always enjoyed it because, just to bring back some old racing stories, there was one time when Jamie Hacking was on a Yamaha and going through 8, he got blown off the motorcycle. Do you remember that? It was in Superbike practice, I believe.
I do.
And he ended up on the inside of the track and the bike ended up on the outside of the track. And that was one of the things about Willow that I always had in my mind was that, I was never going to get blown off a motorcycle. Like, I just always felt as a bigger guy, I had some advantages in the wind there. Other than like the top of the hill, I don't know, what is that, 3 or 4 or something, and coming down. It's not very technical, but it's fun and it creates good racing. And I mean, I enjoyed the time I spent there, at Willow, the couple of years I raced the AMA Superbike Series, raced it.
Yeah. There's so many great stories about Willow Springs. Maybe during the off season, we'll do some talks about like some of those tracks and some of those places. I wanted to just do one more thing, Greg, before we get off, and I'm looking for it right now because, we're always talking about our listeners, and they always write to me or to you, and I always forget. But I got a really interesting message from Paul Piercy last week, and basically what he says is that he's got a little theory that he wanted to run by you and I about Marquez, and the fact of him just being adaptable and how he adapts to things. So when we talk about adaptability, it kind of goes even back to this weekend at Argentina when you talk about World Superbike, but because those guys adapted to the racetrack. I saw Bautista talking about adaptability, but basically what Paul says, and he's on point here, is being able to adapt to machines and being able to adapt. That's what makes him so great. That's what makes him who he is. And it just reminded me, because we're talking about Stoner and Willow Springs and the adaptability of just getting up to pace, getting up to speed, getting up to things that other people can't do. And the best in the world, it's exactly what they do, isn't it? They just adapt and they get up to speed and they figure things out.
Yeah. I mean, yes, there is that element of it, but I think, and I'm going to have to include you in this conversation, Jay, because What you don't realize when you're a squid, which is what I am, and see, I think guys that ride at your level, and I know you're going to not put yourself in this level, but it's not true. When you ride at a squid level, you ride closer to your maximum potential because other people are so much faster than you, like all the time. When I ride around guys like, back in, I want to say it was 99 at a Ducati Revs event in Vegas, I got to ride on the track with Ruben Chaus, like for hours. We got to ride around together. And I remember him coming in saying, wow, man, you actually go really good. And dude, I mean, in cycling, we call it licking the stem. Like when you are just flat out, when you're ham, when you're total ham. And by the way, if you know what ham means, good for you. If you don't, look it up. You're licking the stem. Okay. And that's me riding with like pro level bicycle racers, which I've done. I always lick the stem just to do a freaking cool down pace. So same type of thing with Ruben. But what I think you guys don't realize is the real fast people is that when a Casey Stoner shows up to Willow Springs, Casey Stoner is able to adapt so quickly and say get up to speed so quickly because he's riding at such a low percentage. You know what I mean? Like the guy's probably riding at 40%, but yet at his 40% is faster than 99% of the people out there who do track days and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just one of those things. And the other thing to remember about a guy like Marc Marquez is that he's got an entire corporation behind him. There was a really good article I was going to send you that I didn't. I can't remember who did it. Maybe it was Moto Matters or something. Somebody did a great interview with Marquez's data guy. And basically, the data guy just said, who was a Formula One guy and just incredibly smart, but just loves motorcycles. And he was like, look, when you deal with great racers like Marc Marquez, the amount of information that they give you is so pinpointed and focused because his goal is one goal, and that's to win. So everything backs away from how do I win? So yes, Marquez is adaptable, but on the other hand, he also gets a lot of what he wants. So he doesn't have as much adaptation, in my point of view, as some people may think. You know what I mean?
I think, too, what Paul's talking about in this text that he sent was the fact we never really, and to your point exactly, Greg, but we never really hear Marquez talking about settings. We never really hear him talking about like, we're going to change this, we're going to change that, we're going to make a big step, we're going to do this and that. I mean, he just seems to be able to always get on with it. And even if think how many times we've seen this guy have a problem in qualifying. He just, Coda like 3 years ago when he bike blows up or breaks or whatever it does on the front straightaway and he barely makes it out and then just rips off a lap on a spare bike. Think about the confidence you have to have in your team. No two bikes ever feel alike, blah, 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 blah. And he goes out and sets it on pole. Remember he came across the line? You and I called that because he came across the line with like 2 seconds to go in qualifying.
Yeah.
Barely made it across. If he wouldn't have sprinted down pit lane, there was a great meme this year of like Lorenzo sprinting down pit lane and then they showed Marquez sprinting down pit lane.
Lorenzo was at a quick trot.
Same track, same everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was so funny. But the fact that the guy can just like he just has a feel. Like I guess that's what it is, isn't it? It's a feel. It's a feel that you have that other like I can ride a stock bike now pretty fast still. Like Michael and Corey are always giving me crap about how fast I can ride a stock bike, but it's because I haven't really ridden too many race bikes in the last 5 or 6 years and I don't even know where any settings are on my bike. Couldn't even tell you. I've never messed with it. I just get on the thing and go. And he has that ability to do that on top level race bikes. And of course, when you jump on a street bike or after that, like Stoner, like you said, it probably at Willow yesterday, he's riding around at 50% of his potential, and he's faster than 90+% of the people out there. So I think adaptability is something, but you're right. You can't lose the fact that you have a great team behind you.
Yeah, and honestly, Jason, other than the pundits who hang around the paddock, and there's a couple technical guys that write articles and that kind of can see things, but I really think the most of what we know is wrong with the Honda this year in terms of the rideability came from Cal Crutchlow. Like being honest, they're not coming from Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez never talks about the deficiency of the motorcycle. He just continues to talk about the things that are good. Or you're right, Jay. I mean, we just never hear him talk about setup, or if we could just get a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. It's just his focus is always about racing. It's always.
I just saw that. I get so many like little Instagram things, and people just kind of tweet me something or whatever the case is, and I thought that was a very well just what Paul said there. I thought was well written.
No, it's great.
I meant to squeeze it in last week, and I always forget. But I wanted to squeeze it in last week, but I remembered it today.
All right, so Jason, here we are. It's 1:30 in the afternoon on Thursday on the east side. It's 3 hours earlier on your side. The last Rocco Landers check. Rocco Landers, of course, who's our Licamoli Junior Cup national champion, is out in Spain at the Red Bull Rookies Cup deal. And as of this morning, when I woke up, he was the fastest rider out there of all the people, and still in the mix of possibly getting on the Red Bull Rookies Cup. So I just wanted to mention that. I haven't checked it recently to see how everything's turned out today, but go Rocco Landers, because he is absolutely on fire in the Red Bull Rookies Cup selection process.
I'm gonna tell you right now, if he doesn't get in Red Bull Rookies, I'm feeling a rant next week.
Yeah, for sure. But what we do know about Red Bull Rookies is it's not based solely on speed. It's based off of a variety of factors.
I get
there's a whole list and everything else. But I agree with you. If Rocco doesn't get in, his Instagram this morning was he was P1. He's the fastest guy out there. If you're the fastest guy out there on one of the Red Bull Rookies Cup days and you don't get in, then I would say it has something to do with politics. You know what I mean?
Toby Kamsuk was over there. He didn't make it through to day 2. I mean, we kind of were figuring that. I mean, the kid's 6'1" or whatever. Like, he's way too big.
Bike.
Torrin Collins was over there. Another young man that did the British Talent Cup this year. He's from Canada. They come down and race CVMA a lot. Torrin is a tremendous. But one of the things that they talked about, both of those guys told me that the bikes that they're on over there are so much different than anything that they've ridden. But that again goes back to adaptability. Rocco probably hasn't ridden anything kind of like those either, and he just gets on with it, figures it out, and goes. So it's going to be interesting. And have an awesome weekend, G-Dub.
You too, Jason. And I hope you feel better and try to get out on the golf course or something and have some fun. And I'm sure we'll be talking Monday night when the Patriots play.
Oh God,
Monday Night Football. Hello.
Yeah, great.